Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks, one-on-one with Keith Engle. I'll be joined by my special guest today, Paul Rosen, former, I think. We'll talk to him about that. I believe it's all former now. Paralympics hockey player and sitting volleyball player. Won a gold medal as a goaltender for the Paralympics hockey team for Canada. Oldest person, I believe, ever to do that. We'll talk to him about that. We'll talk to him about some of his struggles in life as a promising athlete as a youth and how that affected his life up until this point and some other things. And we'll be looking also and talking to him about, and a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about will be in his book, Never Give Up, The Meaning of My Life, the Paul Rosen Story, which he'll show a little. And you can get that on Amazon. You can get that any place you can buy books pretty much. And we'll talk to Paul about that. I just put it on my Kindle. We want to welcome everybody watching this morning on our TGI Sports Talk Facebook feed, our YouTube feed, our X feed. We're live this morning on Roku on the National Streaming Sports Network. And this will replay, obviously, several times, and you can catch it in the archives all the time if you're not here with us live. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media, specifically the Sports Corner that he does with Smoke and Jim Frazier every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I've had the pleasure of being a guest on that show several times, and Ralph does a lot of great stuff outside of that as well. Check his stuff out. DDH, thumbs up. We miss you. And I want to thank last week's guest, Randy Lurch, former pitcher with the Phillies, the Brewers, the Expos, the Giants. We talked to Randy a lot. Also a promising professional athlete who struggled with drug and alcohol addiction and was very honest in his own book about in our interview about those struggles and what might have been. So we had a good time with him. And next week we'll have Jim Sundberg, former catcher for the Texas Rangers and the world champion 1985 Royals. So we'll have a good time with that. And we'll talk about some other stuff as we go along. But we want to welcome in our guest, Paul Rosen. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great to have you. I know it's you had a tough night with a loss to your arch rivals over there. Your team's doing very well in Melbourne. Paul is, I didn't mention, is coaching hockey in Australia now. How's that going right now? Give us a little quick update.
Well, let me just put my camera on proper so you can see my head. And it's not
there you go.
Yeah, so I'm in Melbourne, Australia. My buddy Kerry Goulet, we do a lot of work together with his company, Stop Concussions. And Kerry's the head coach of the Melbourne Ice. I'm the assistant coach. There's 10 teams in Australia. In Melbourne, there's 2, the Melbourne Ice and the Melbourne Mustangs. The dreadful rivalry, the derby was tonight. We're in first place. They're not doing so well, but they beat us tonight. Their goalie played great, and we're still in first place. We play the Sydney Ice Dogs tomorrow, so right back at it.
How long has hockey been a thing in Australia? Because you don't hear about that a lot.
Well, it's called ice hockey down here. If you say hockey down there, they think you're talking about field hockey. So
okay.
It's actually ice hockey. But, yeah, they've been playing this for quite a while. Just it's getting bigger now. The program, Australia has an ice hockey team in most divisions in the World Championships, the under 16, under 18, under 20, the senior division. They're obviously not in Canada or the United States A pool. They're used to be the C pool. Now it's divisions 1, 2, 3. It's all changed. Everything's changed with the IIHF. But the Australians love it. They've really come to enjoy the game of ice hockey. And it's getting better now. Our imports, we have a guy, Jeff Solo, and Austin Albright, who both played in the East Coast League. Johnny Alonso played in the NCAA. Our goalie Tatsu played in Japan. So we got some good homegrown guys too.
Well, just to stay on this topic for a second before we dive into you and your story, is the game progressing to the point where I know we have an Olympics coming up in 26, I think, and professional players play in the Olympics, as we know now.
Yep.
Is that a possibility for Australia to qualify?
No, not a chance. Not in the A pool with Canada and the United States and Finland.
Yeah.
Sweden, Czechia. Yeah, it's no, it's not going to happen. No.
Do you see them progressing to that level?
No, I got to be honest.
No,
No,
that's fair.
no, it's like sled hockey, para ice hockey,
Yeah.
where I had a 10-year, really, really successful career. There's some really good when I played, it was Norway and us, and then Norway didn't let their work on their grassroots program. It was really all their veteran guys. As their veteran guys retired, the Norwegians slipped down to the B pool. They just won the B pool. They'll be coming up to the A pool for the World Championships next year. But it's Canada, the U.S., Russia was amazing until they got banned. Czechia is actually playing quite well, but there's still a huge gap between certain countries, and Australia just they're happy playing where they're playing, and I can't see that ever changing.
Well, you mentioned the Russians, and I'm a little off topic, but will they have it? Because they had a team in the Summer Olympics the last time I don't want to call them expatriates, but Russia's not allowed to play as a country, but there were Russian athletes playing as a group. Was that still going to happen in the Winter Olympics?
Well, what happened and what really bothered a lot of people was they allowed in the Winter Games last time in Beijing, they allowed the Russians to play under the IOC logo, the International Olympic Committee logo. Right. They were going to get. I worked for the CBC during the Olympics. I've been involved in 6 Olympics, 3 as an athlete, 3 as a broadcaster. And the games coming up will be my 4th games in Italy. I'll be back in Italy. We won in Torino in 2006. We haven't won since then. I'll show you the medal later when we get into that. But sure. This 226 will be 20 years later. It'll be in Rome. So we had thought in Beijing that the games were going to go on. The Russians were in the village. Everything was ready. I was ready to broadcast the first game, Canada and Russia. And in the morning, the IPC, the International Paralympic Committee, voted in their infamous wisdom to not let the Russians play under. And this was more. It was really heavy with the Ukraine and Belarus and that. And they decided to go against the Olympic Committee and not let them play under the IPC, as the IOC did with the Olympics. And they kicked the Belarusians and the Russians out. So we had to scramble, and I ended up doing Slovakia and the U.S. Game 1 instead of. And I had to learn the Slovakian names pretty fast.
That's got to be hard. I have a hard enough time with Smith and Jones some days, so I understand that could be a problem.
Yeah. Hey, try to do the bronze medal game of Korea and China.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was not a fun night of training for that one.
Number 44 takes the puck. That'd be my approach, probably. So. Yeah,
can't do that when you're calling a game live. But
I
hey,
know.
Listen, it's been a great ride, an absolutely great ride.
Well, let's start. I mean, you grew up in Toronto, obviously in Canada, men of hockey, and talk to us about growing up in Toronto a little bit and your upbringing, and obviously, hockey was ingrained in you, I'm sure. I don't know if the other sports were. Baseball was coming to Toronto when you were a teenager. Talk to us a little bit about that time in your life.
Yeah, baseball was actually my favorite sport, to be honest with you. I love baseball. I was very fortunate. My brother's 4 years older than me. My dad's a truck driver. He was working all the time. So my brother took me to pretty well everything. And my brother, we loved baseball. So we went to Montreal when I was a teenager. The Jays didn't come into play until I was almost 20. So we went to Montreal all the time. I love baseball. I love that you're having Sundberg on next week. That was because catching was me. That's how I became a successful sled hockey goalie, because I was a catcher in baseball. And I loved Gary Carter and Carlton Fisk and those old school guys. My favorite Montreal Expo, you're my age, you would remember this, was the right fielder Ellis Valentine. You remember Ellis
very
Valentine?
Well. Very well.
What a cannon arm he had. So I played a lot of baseball, a lot of hockey. We moved to Thornhill when I was 11 years old, and I had the opportunity to play for the Thornhill Thunderbirds, a team that I just fell in love with. I was a big right winger. I could score. I wasn't the greatest skater in the world, but I had a pretty good shot, and I loved the game until an accident in Barrie, Ontario, pretty well ended my dreams.
Did you feel? I mean, were you, and again, youth hockey is huge and it's a little different, right, than the States where they go to college and whatnot. You guys play in youth hockey leagues. And did you feel like you were on that track to be a professional player?
You know what? You never know. I don't know whether I would have made the NHL or anything like that, but I think the way I was playing, I would have been able to play in Europe or somewhere like that. I would have made. I was not looking at school as an option at all. So hockey was my life. So I was looking at making a living, whatever kind of living it was, playing hockey.
So in 1975, I think it was, right, you suffered this serious knee injury. Tell us about that and a little bit. And I know we'll talk about the aftermath of that as well, but tell us what happened to cause this in the beginning.
Old rink, old barn in Barrie, Ontario, the Dunlop Arena. It's now a fire hall. It's been knocked down a long time ago. I was a right winger. I was coming around the net. I caught a rut in the ice and my skate stuck and my body turned and I spiral fractured my leg up through the shin into my knee, toward the ACL, MCL, and PCL. And the PCL is the posterior cruciate ligament, which is like they call it the avalanche's injury because it very rarely happens. But when it does, it's a tough fix. And at 15 years old, it was a devastating blow for me because I didn't really have anything to fall back on. I was, in school, I was called an idiot continuously. I couldn't read or write very well. Still at 64, I don't read or write very well. And it devastated and destroyed me and started me in a destruction and a downslide avalanche of drug and alcohol use. Well,
yeah, in your book, which if you want to hold it up there, we can show the cover of your book real quick. I know you talk about a lot of this stuff. Never Give Up, The Meaning of My Life, the Paul Rosen Story, which I've just skimmed the surface of, and I hope to do it more. Guys, you can pick this up on Amazon, and I'm sure if there's any other place that you suggest they go, they can certainly pick it up. I'm sure any place that sells books.
I'll give you, I sell it for $30 autographed and personalized, so I'll give you my email if they want to send me an e-transfer with their address. I will personalize it, autograph it, and ship it out to them.
Excellent. Is that the same email I used for you earlier? I'll post it.
It is. Yeah. paulrosen577@gmail.com.
Okay. I'll post that to the to my personal page and the TGI Sports Talk page as well. So we'll get that out. So you talk about, was it right away that this darkness overcame your life and you fell into these bad habits? You talk about so suicide attempts, drug and alcohol addiction. Did it begin pretty much right then? I mean, you're a 15, 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it happened. Then later on, when I got into trauma counseling, I realized that it was incidents that happened to me as a kid. When I was 11, I don't want to get into a lot of the real bad stuff right now. You might have some young listeners listening. But there was things that happened to me when I was a kid. And later on in my 50s, going to trauma counseling after my one suicide attempt, I realized that the drugs started from the knee injury, but it had nothing to do with the knee injury. The drugs and the alcohol made me realize that, I could feel different. The demons went away. I didn't feel like I had to, play this game. I could fit in because the pain was going away physically and emotionally, but it never goes away forever.
Well, you mentioned, and I'm sure it doesn't, is this tied to, and again, we don't have to get into a lot of details, but maybe they're in your book and I haven't seen it yet, but is this tied to some of the problems that they've had with youth hockey in Canada that we've all read about over the last, however many years?
Well, you know what? Yeah, no, my incident, I can't blame it on anything hockey wise because, the trouble that I had later when I was playing for Canada, that was all stemmed from personal injuries, personal incidents and mental health. And that's the one thing I really want your listeners to understand, that drug use, alcohol use, suicide, and all of that is all tied into mental health. I'm not a doctor. I only have grade 9 education. Like I told you at the very beginning, one of my best friends in the entire world, the guy I'm living with right now, who I'm assistant coach for, Kerry Goulet, started Stop Concussions. He is one of the guys that really taught me through the injuries I've had, and the brain injuries, which are concussions, that it's all mental health related. Like you can blame alcohol, you can blame drugs, you can blame it all. It all ties back into mental health.
And you've become a big advocate for that type of awareness as you've gone forward, correct?
Yeah, I just did a keynote talk. I am in Melbourne right now, where it's after 11 at night, almost going into the 15th. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I did it for 9 o'clock it started at 9 in Barrie, Ontario. And it was about drug and alcohol addiction and recovery and just trying to get my story and my message across.
Interesting stuff. You also mentioned, and I know you became an advocacy for, well, literacy. I mean, you talked about your ninth grade education. I know that at 50, you basically had admitted that you were illiterate at that point in your life, and became a big advocate for getting people educated. You went back to school at that time, if I'm right. How do you function from early on when nobody's literate, if you will, to that point in your life? How do you get by?
You learn how to become a tap dancer. You learn how to become an Academy Award actor. Most addicts, most alcoholics, most people who have reading and writing issues that have big personalities. And I've had a big personality. I love the spotlight. I love to talk. So you get by other things. I've never told until I was 50 and started to work with ABC Life Literacy with Robert Munch and a bunch of great people, and traveled up and talked about adult literacy and my literacy problem and my reading and writing and being made fun of when I was in high school. So for me, the perfect example is I had to, I think I was 46 or 47, right in the heart of our winning. We won the Olympics in 2006. We won the Worlds in 2007. This was 2008 because back to back. Global Television called me, live show. They wanted me to present the Athlete of the Year, male and female, for the Canadian Sports Awards, live at a big theater in downtown Toronto, teleprompter, everything. And I was terrified, my friend, terrified, because I can't read a teleprompter. There's just no way. 90% of my talks, I've done over 1,200 talks in the last 18 years. It's all ad lib. Everything, you give me a subject, I can go on it. So I said to them, and they had no clue, but I knew I could talk my way out of it. I said, listen, it's going to be better, and it's going to be better for the audience. It's going to be better for the live. You just tell me the winners, tell me who is, even put up the names, but tell me what you really want me to do, and let me go with it, because it's going to be way better. And they did, and it went fantastic. And I introduced the winner of male, winner female. And later on, when it all came out, and I worked with this producer at Global Television again, I told him there's not a chance I could have read the teleprompter. No way. It was live TV. It would have been dreadful.
Was the rest of the demons and whatnot you were fighting in your life, did it cause you just to push this to the side and not address it for that long?
Yeah, that's great.
Find your way through.
Yeah, that's a great question. The demons I still have at 64. I still have the demons. They still come out and haunt me. The difference now is I know how to handle them. I never knew how to handle them before. I would just hide them until I was alone, and then when I was alone, I'd go through that self-hate. I hate myself. I'm terrible. I'm an idiot. I'm this and that. And once you realize, and I truly believe, and I think everybody in recovery has to go for trauma counseling, because it will all come back. Drugs and alcohol don't just come. You don't just take a drink and go, hey, I'm going to be an alcoholic. You don't just take a drug and go, I'm going to be a drug addict. There's something underlying that gets you to that point. Me, it was two terrible things that happened to me as a kid, and it's in the book. And that's what I kept going back to. I kept going back to those two things in my mind. Hey, listen, Roger Lajoie, who wrote the book with me, and Roger, I give him a shout out every time I talk about the book, because Roger's written 13 books. He's incredible. He's been on the Fan 590 in Toronto for 40 years now. And when we finished the book, I had to take a 3-month stop of not talking to anybody and just backing away, because people were calling me about the events, and I buried them, these two events.
Yeah.
And then when they kept talking to me, my sister, who's one of the closest people in the world to me, she didn't even know about these two things. And when she, questioned me on them, it really got me. And I have had since the book came out, I had a relapse. I was in a coma for 72 hours, and I'm almost coming up, but almost 30 months clean and sober now.
Well, congratulations on that. I know it was 2019 when you first got clean and sober. What was there somebody that was influential in that? What made you decide at that point, I've got to find some help?
I tried to kill myself. That's what it was.
That'll be a wake up.
It was Bell Let's Talk Day. It's the most ironic. January 30th, 2019. I did an event in the morning, about 500 kids. They told me how great I was. Everything was amazing. I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Came home, turned the TV on, and there was a documentary on Rick Rippon. I don't know if you remember Rick Rippon with the Vancouver Canucks.
I know the name, yeah.
Took his life. And that's when I decided, you know what, there's no point. I'm better off. My family's better off without me. I'm better off not around. And I ended up trying to take my life. It didn't work. I was very fortunate that through the things I did, I was able to get to a hospital in Toronto, and I spent 19 days in the psychiatric ward. And from that, my daughters really, my two daughters are 40 and 36, and they basically, gave me the option of getting better and having a family or dying alone. And I had grandchildren at the time. I have 5 of them now, and I decided to move in with my daughter and go for help and go for trauma counseling, and that's what really, really helped me for almost 3 years.
Well, that's good. And we wish you continued success in that area as well. I know it's a day-to-day battle, and I've seen some of that up close, and I know it can be a struggle, and we wish you the best there.
Thank you.
In between, you getting that help you needed, getting clean and sober the first time, you had accomplished some things from your injury and not being able to play hockey. Did you play any hockey? You couldn't play any hockey at all, even at the lowest level, recreationally or whatever, all that time in between?
I still played. I couldn't play at an elite level, but
Gotcha.
I played I took about a year off from like 17 till my 30s. I played beer league hockey. I still traveled with a touring team. Couldn't skate very well, but I still had a pretty hard shot. I'll tell you one crazy story. In 1981, I was going out with my what would have been my wife in 83. It was 81. I had broken my leg again. I was in a cast broke my kneecap. I was in a cast from my groin to my ankle. And the beer league team I was on was in the championship. I was the best scorer, not best player, best scorer on the team. We had the championship game. My girlfriend went away with her family. I grabbed my hockey bag, threw it in the back of my truck, went to the arena with a hacksaw in my bag, hacksawed my cast off, played in the game. We won 3-1, got all 3 goals. Big deal, right? The Chesswood Men's A Beer League Championship. The problem was I had to then go back to the hospital and get a new cast. Now, that was back when casts were plaster, all white. So you had all kinds of autographs on it, people signing it. And my cast at the time was like about 3 weeks old. So it was covered. And then I did it. I was so excited. We won. I came home and she came back and I had a brand new plaster cast on. No, so I couldn't fool her. And that started the downfall. That was not very. So anybody out there that thinks they're going to get away with something, eventually you're going to get caught.
Well, everybody does, and we all have our faults, and we've all been caught at something or other for sure. There's no perfect people out there for sure. Chris,
absolutely.
Your good buddy Chris is here, and he beats me to my next question. So, as this is all happening, and you're playing, well, before we get to this, I guess, what led up to you having this severe injury, still playing some hockey? I got an idea, maybe. Not treating your leg the way you should have. What led to the eventual amputation of your leg from where you were to then?
Yeah, so in 1997, I had a chance to help out and coach with the Israeli national hockey team. We were in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Coming back to Toronto, I was working with the under-18 team, and my leg broke, and my knee broke in the Frankfurt airport, believe it or not.
Wow.
Came back to Toronto, and at the Toronto Western Hospital, they had to do a knee replacement on me at 37 years old. And I picked up an infection in the operating room, and that led to, from 97, January of 97 until May of 99, a nightmare 2 and a bit years where they tried to save my leg, and then eventually had to amputate my leg June 9th, 99, which was just last week, was 25 years.
And what led you to eventually from that point to, you had a lot of rehab and recovery to do, obviously, once that happened, but what led you to sledge? Is sledge hockey the right term, by the way? Is it sled or sledge?
Not anymore. The game was invented in Norway, so it was called sledge because a sled is called sledge in Norwegian and Sweden. That's where the game was really, honed. So in North America, it was sled hockey. In Europe, it was sledge hockey.
Gotcha.
It's now called para ice hockey. Everything is para.
Okay.
Para ice hockey, para wheelchair, everything is para. So back then it was sled hockey. It was a great story. After a few months of being home, I had a chance to go to a place called Variety Village in Scarborough, Ontario. I met a young boy named Shane Smith, who's a huge a part of my story. He was 12 years old, a triple amputee. He told me about this great game. He was playing on a team in the area I was in. He happened to be Jewish. I happen to be Jewish. I don't know if it's going to take you as a surprise, but there's not a lot of great Jewish athletes out there. Maybe Zach Hyman, first 50-goal scorer in the Jewish calendar. Anyways, I started playing, and I progressed very, very fast.
Well, as you mentioned, you become an elite athlete in the para athletic world. You play in the Paralympic Games for the first time at 41, right? I believe in 2001, and you finally win it. I shouldn't say finally. You win a gold medal, which I think you've got at the Torino Games, as you mentioned earlier. Oldest. So were you the oldest? What is the oldest para hockey player to win? Or what is the?
Okay, so I was the oldest. People get this wrong all the time. I was the oldest rookie for Canada in Salt Lake City. I was just a month away from my 42nd birthday. So I was the oldest rookie in Canadian history to compete in the Olympic or Paralympic Games. I was a rook. We had two rookies in Salt Lake City. Graham Murray, who was from Gravenhurst, who was 15 years old, and I was 41 and almost 42 from Toronto.
What were the average age of players you'd be playing with at that point in time?
The bulk of the guys were under 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, my oldest daughter was older than 11 guys on the team.
And actually, and I'm assuming, and again, not to minimize your own physical situation, I'm assuming there were guys on that team that had probably worse. I want to say disabilities, and it's probably the wrong word to use these days. But
no, it's fine. It's fine. We had some double amps on the team. We had some single amps. We had some guys who were paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah.
Every guy had his injury that was devastating to him, and every guy has turned his life around to have an opportunity. That's what's great about the Paralympics is you get most athletes who were inches away from death, and now they're playing for their country.
And all this time, you're still struggling with your addictions and whatnot, and fighting through this. And I mean, did anybody ever see any of that outside? You said it happened when you were alone. That you were, a functioning addict, if you will.
Yeah, none of my teammates had a clue. My coach didn't have a clue. I was allowed to take the certain painkillers as a Paralympic athlete, and I was a great actor. I was able to convince doctors to give me prescriptions at 300 at a time of Oxycontins and different things, and you just learn to play a game. You learn to be an actor.
What did it mean to you? I mean, I can imagine that being able to compete at that level in the Paralympics and para athletic world was uplifting, but was there some downside to it as well, as far as wondering what could have been if this didn't happen to you, or was it all on the upside?
You know what? Since I lost my leg, I never had one day of regret to what my life was. The problems that I had were being two lives. I had the life of Paul. I had the life of Rosie, and Rosie was this athlete who everybody loved, and Paul was this guy who hated himself.
Yeah.
And my family paid the price because I was not a great father. I was not a great husband. I'm not ever going to pretend that I was a great father or a great husband. I'm a pretty good father now. I'm an incredible grandfather. But I put playing the game and putting the Canadian jersey on way over anything of anybody that cared about me, family or friends. And I learned that lesson very valuable when I retired after the Vancouver Games, because my sponsors went away because I wasn't playing anymore. The money went away because I wasn't playing anymore. My teammates, they went away because they had their own lives, and I had alienated my family. Thankfully, they gave me a second and third and fifth chance, and things are great now. But I learned a lot over the years.
What we're reaching an age. When did you retire officially, or
A
stop?
month before. Well, I stopped. Vancouver was in March of 2010. I turned
2010.
50 in April of 2010. I officially retired in September of 2010, so I was 50.
Could you not do it anymore, or you just felt this had run its course, or?
There was two things. I probably could have played a little longer. I still could play at the elite level, but losing in Vancouver, it drained my will to want to continue.
And at what point did you also played sitting volleyball, which is I'm interested in how. I'm assuming the net's lower. I've never seen it, so you can tell us a little bit about that. But how did that come about in your athletic career?
So that's a crazy story too. In 2007, I just got divorced. I went to Ottawa to do a talk for Soldier On, which is the Canadian equivalent of Wounded Warriors that you have in the States.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to Soldier On, to soldiers, getting them to understand the importance of sport and getting involved in, whether it was a Paralympic level or just getting involved to play sport. And after the talk, I was walking around the university campus, the Ottawa campus, and I bumped into an old friend of mine who was the head of Volleyball Canada. And he had said to me, hey, you want to come? And they were getting ready for the Pan American Games in August in Rio de Janeiro. This was in May.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to come talk to the sitting volleyball team? We hadn't had a team yet. We had just been given Toronto the 2015 Pan American Games. We had a standing disabled team, but not a sitting team. And so I came in the gym. They only had 7 guys who were going to go to Rio. And so they said, one of the guys said, hey, have you ever played volleyball before? And I said, yeah. In 1975 in high school, we had won an Ontario championship at Thornhill High School, but this was 2007, and that was standing volleyball with 4 limbs. This is sitting, and I've got 3 limbs, and I hadn't touched the volleyball in years. So I took my leg off, I jumped on the floor, I got the competitive juices started going, and the guy who was running the team, he said, hey, what are you doing in August? And I said, we have August off, actually. He said, would you come to be an 8th for us? Because we only had 7 guys. And most countries had 8 or 9 players. And I said, you got to talk to Hockey Canada because I can't say yes. They said yes immediately because they wanted me as far away from Toronto as possible. I was going through a terrible divorce. And I went first games that I had where you came out in opening ceremonies in shorts and a flip-flop and a T-shirt instead of a winter parka and minus 1,000 in the winter. And we actually medaled. We bronzed. Brazil was the best by a mile. They won the gold. U.S. won a silver, and we won the bronze. And I'm one of only 6 Canadians to medal in the summer and the winter.
I skipped a little story. Well, I guess it's around the same time. You had a situation with your gold medal at an autograph session where it disappeared, and the immortal what is that? What was Don Sherry? He was a great coach, obviously. And he was working on Hockey Night in America, probably is what he worked on, was known for mostly after that, right?
Hockey Night in Canada.
I'm sorry, Hockey Night in Canada. It's silly mistake for me to make about that.
That's all right. That's all right.
But he was integral in the recovery of this gold medal. Tell us a little about that story.
Yeah, well, once again, I'll bring up my my buddy Kerry Goulet. It was an autograph session in Downsview Park in Toronto at Stop Concussions event. We had all kinds of great players, alumni players who were playing ball hockey. There was a bunch of gold medals on the table. Cheryl Pounder, who was a great former women's player, and she was doing some broadcasting at the time. She asked me at the end of the day, Rosie, where's your medal? I said, it's beside yours. She said, no, it's not. We looked. We realized it was gone. She called Cassie Campbell, who was her captain of the women's team, who also was doing some talks with work with CBC, the Canadian Broadcast Company, and Don Cherry, who was a friend. He found out about it. He went on Coach's Corner that night, which is his famous show for years and years and years and years with Ron McLean. He said that night live, the rat who stole Rosie's medal, put it in a mailbox, and we won't call the police. A week to the day, the medal came back through the central sorting at the post office.
Had to be an American that stole your medal. Just saying.
It could have been anybody. I don't want to get anybody mad at me or yell at me in any country in this world, so I'm going to say it could have been anybody.
I said it. They can get mad at me because I live here and I know some of the people that I know. Oh, you're Canadian. I know it's too nice to steal something. I'm sure there's people that aren't as nice, but it just seems impossible to me. Chris mentions besides Don Sherry, and if you've got other Don Sherry stories you want to tell, certainly do. As a hockey player and a member of that community, you've certainly had to have met a lot of notable people that you can call friends. Who are some of the people that were important in your life or good friends?
Well, the guy who ran Hockey Canada for years, Bob Nicholson, did a lot of things with him and with the Hockey Canada brass at the time. Our coach, Jeff Snyder, who was a good buddy of mine, his nephew, you might remember this, his nephew was Dan Snyder. He was killed in the car accident with Dan Heatley in the old car accident when they played with the Atlanta Thrashers, Coach Bob Hartley. We were at the funeral in Elmira, Ontario, which is a small place outside of Kitchener. He coached the Kitchener Rangers. Obviously, Don Cherry and Ron McLean and some of the guys there. A lot of guys that played pro, and Wendell Clark, Gary Lehman, and a lot of guys through. Like I said, Kerry Goulet from Stop Concussions. He played 14, 15 years in Germany. So just fortunate to know a lot of the late great Ron Ellis, who just passed away. Was a huge part of a lot of things in my life. I've been fortunate to do a lot of great things. Johnny Bauer, one of the greatest goalies of all time, he gave me a great first meeting when we met, because my success came in my 40s, his success came in his 40s. We became good friends. Just very, very, very fortunate. I've been fortunate to have dinner or lunch with a few prime ministers, and some people might say that is not a great thing, but it still is. Like Tim Thomas did it when the Bruins won, and he refused to go to the White House. I don't think politics should come involved. If you're an athlete and you're invited to the White House, or you're an athlete in Canada and you're invited to Parliament Hill to meet the president or the prime minister, you do it. It's an honor. Whether you believe in the president or the prime minister, and we won't get into politics, I personally think you do it.
It's become quite the thing here in the States. It happens a lot when the champions are invited. They X amount don't go, and I agree with you 100%. I feel very strongly about my politics, but you respect the office that invited you there, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure it's the same thing for you. So
I agree.
You mentioned earlier in talking about hockey players, and I'm sorry, the name's escaping. We talked before the show. Somebody that you had helped get into the New Jersey Devils organization, played here locally with the Albany, or the River Rats at the time, I believe. They went through a couple of incarnations, but talk to us about a little bit about that. Were there other players you helped? You can talk about the specific story, but were there other players you helped along the way?
some guys here or there that you wouldn't know names by that never really made it, but Max was probably the best one. There's a chapter in the book on Max Beerbrier. He played in Kazakhstan with Nick Antropop, who had some pretty good success in the NHL with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Max was drafted 62nd overall by Lou Lamoriello and the Devils. He ended up playing 2.5 years with the Albany River Rats. Never really had the opportunity to come up. He had a ton of talent. I remember once Lou Lamoriello said to me at camp in West Orange that he had the same speed and ability as Alexander McGillney. That was at his first training camp. But unfortunately, the drugs and alcohol bug bit Max like it bit me. And Lou was the last guy that you wanted to be a part of that with. And he never did get the chance. He played a long time. He played with the Cardiff Devils in England for years, where he still is and lives now. He was a talent that if alcohol didn't bite him, he would have done something.
Yeah. What time frame was that? You remember?
That was in 2000. He was drafted in the 2000 draft in Florida, and he. I think they had Mike Rupp was their first pick when Rupp was taken first by the Rangers. Didn't go to the Rangers. Then Mike Rupp was taken by the Devils, and then Max after Rupp. Rupp played 2 years with Max in Albany with the River Rats, and then Rupp obviously had a really good NHL career, scoring the winning goal for the Devils when one of their Stanley Cups, and now he does the ESPN hockey, and he's got his own show. He's amazing.
I got to ask you about a guy who's a good friend of mine who never made it past the River Rat level. I was called, that's a top minor league level, right? But He played around, and I can't remember all the organizations, but he played for Binghamton in the AHL and some other teams. He ended up in Albany in the River Rats organization, and he's from Ottawa. His name is Cloutier. Do you know a name? Brett Cloutier?
100%, absolutely. He was really, really solid, real good guy. He actually played with Max the one season.
He worked for me for a long time at the company that I run sales for, and he's gone on to some other things now in the fitness equipment arena. But he's quite a guy. I still play golf with him a lot. And
yeah, his brother played with the Vancouver Canucks.
He made it to the pros with Vancouver.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
His brother did, not him.
No, I know. I knew you said it. It's funny, Brett. We used to kid him because there used to be a site, and I think it's gone now, where it was all hockey fights, right? And they would show all these players and their records. And I used to kid him that, he was like won one fight out of 147. Now he won a lot more than that because he's a big guy and he was a bruiser. And I wasn't going to I would never mess with him, but I kid him a lot about that.
That 1 year that Max played with the River Rats, they had some tough guys. They were a tough team. You remember the late John Conniff? Yeah. He coached them. That was the year that John Conniff coached them, and Robbie Fatorik actually coached them 1 year. He had some really good coaches. He had Terry Ruskowski as a coach. Yeah, it's a shame that they haven't been here now. It's got to be, I don't know, maybe at the old Pepsi Center. Yeah, it's the Times Union Center now. It's had about 10 different names since it came into play, but I made the trip from Toronto to Albany many times. There was a lot of great teams there, and it's too bad that they changed their names from the. I think they lost their affiliation with the Devils for a while, and they became another. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the team even now before they left for good. Actually, the team in Glens Falls is playing really well now. They may have won the league championship that they're in. I don't think they're in the AHL though. I think it's something else. So no, yeah, they're not. I digress there. I just happened to think of that. I wonder if he knows my boy Brett, and he's a character. I got to tell you. So you play a round of golf with Brett, and it's very, very interesting. 4 hours, I can tell you. So, in fact, we'll play tomorrow. I hope. Chris actually has a question now about Wayne Simmons. Yeah. Love him. Familiar name to most people up there, and he's now retired. Any stories about Wayne? The only story I can tell you about Wayne that we can use on air, is that in 2015, Wayne and I were involved in the torch relay for the Pan American Games in downtown Toronto, and I actually passed the torch to Wayne on Queen Street, and then he went through, and I know his mother well. Wayne had a really solid career. He just retired. He retired as a Philadelphia Flyer. He signed a one-day contract with them. He played his last couple of years with Toronto. But Wayne was the type of guy that, man, he would go through a wall for a team, and he's a guy you want on your organization. I'll tell you that much.
You do during all this again, 2000. Oh gosh, I can't remember the year. 13. I wrote it down here somewhere. You win the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Winner Award in Canada, which is for people that were. Well, tell us what the award's about and what it might mean to you.
Yeah, so the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Award was a big. It was 66,000 Canadians got it out of 38 million that particular year. But the Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, he hand selected 17 of those 66,000, and I was one of them. Kind of felt like Waldo in the book Where's Waldo, because the other 16 were multi-millionaires. You know, Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, he was one of them. All of them were millionaires. I had, I think, 30 cents in my pocket, to be honest with you. But the Prime Minister said to me something that'll stick with me till this day. He took me aside and he said, "You're getting this because of what you do off the ice, what you do for people with disabilities. Yeah. You're a Canadian hero." And when the Prime Minister says that to you, whether you believe in his politics or not, you take that to heart for a kid who's got a grade 9 education, whose entire life was told he would never achieve anything. You know, a year before my mom died, her and my dad got to be there and see me receive this from the Prime Minister. It's something that means a lot to me.
At what point did you get? I know you were still doing some of the working with the para hockey team and doing the broadcasting and whatnot. At what point did you get involved with the more with the Australian hockey team, and was it who helped you along professionally at that point as you were getting clean and sober and whatnot?
Yeah, so Don Cherry was a big part of me getting into the broadcasting, because he was telling me as we were doing events and while I was still playing, you know, you'd be great in the booth. You should think about going into the booth. You're good on the mic and you got a good personality. People like you, and your controversy. They want controversy, right? So they don't want a guy in the booth to just say, "Hey, John Smith," but they want people to tune in, not being mean or anything. And so I learned from him a lot. I was very fortunate. The first guy that I ever did my first broadcast with, Dave Randorf, who is the voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Dave was great to me for the first few years. I was able to work with a guy, Vic Rauter, who's like the god in Canada. He's done every sport you can imagine, from curling to lawn bowling to hockey to baseball to everything. So they really gave me the confidence. And in the Australian thing, I'm going to go back again to my friend Kerry Goulet. He started through Stop Concussions, the Ice Hockey Classic, it was called. And he's brought Americans and Canadians down to Australia to play in Sydney and Brisbane and Adelaide, all over Australia. From that, he got the opportunity to coach the Melbourne Ice last year as a head coach, and he brought me in this year to kind of help out a little.
Does your relationship with Kerry go back before this time? Yeah,
it goes back 20 years now, and that's how I got involved in Stop Concussions.
Yeah, good. I want to go back to the announcing thing a little bit, because one thing I always tell people, and a guy that I miss broadcasting a lot, and I thought this guy should broadcast every sport. You mentioned the Canadian broadcaster did that. Doc Emmerich was, to me, the consummate play-by-play caller, not just in hockey. He did at some baseball games with Pirates, like spring training games. But I thought to myself, this guy should be calling play-by-play for every major sport. He was awesome.
Love him. Absolutely love him. Another guy who I love is Sam Rosen, not because he's got the name Rosen. I love Sam Rosen. There's some great broadcasters out there.
Do you know those guys personally, Doc or Sam?
I know the guys from being around so long, but I don't know him to go up and say, "Hey, Doc, how you doing?" and for him to say, "Hey, Rosie." But I know it's a small community, so I do know the bulk of them.
If you ever run into him, tell him we need him back, because I miss him on big hockey games, man. I'll tell you, just the best.
There's a lot of the guys out there now that could learn from the old timers.
For
Rick
sure.
Demarette, Mayday, la 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 Fontaine.
Right? Watch a video once in a while, right? And learn something. What are your thoughts on hockey today? What's better? What do you miss that isn't in the game today? What are your thoughts on the game of hockey as we watch it?
I'm glad you asked me that question because I love the game of hockey, ice hockey down here, but hockey. I think the game is faster, it's stronger, the players are bigger, the equipment is better. So that part of the game, it's a very fast, incredible, moving game. There's guys, we always try to compare, the Gretzkys and the Lemieux to the McDavids and the Berards and that. I don't think you can compare.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I cannot stand about the game now is you cannot hit anybody clean anymore. If you hit somebody clean and they go down, somebody's jumping you. There's just, it's not the same as back then when if you hit somebody and it was a good hit, it was a good hit. If you hit somebody dirty, there was somebody going to jump you and you were going to have a fight. And they knew it. There was rules and the guys abided by the rules. I think a lot of the respect is gone from the game.
Yeah. TV's in Canada, I'm sure it's different. And here in the States, you get your regional. Regionally, the game is well attended and well watched, obviously. But nationally, until you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the audiences, they've always struggled for a big TV contract. Is there something that's missing? It's a better game in person. That's never going to change, I don't think. But is there something they can do from a TV standpoint that would make the game more attractive to casual fans, I guess?
I think they do a lot of great things now with, some of the great interviews and some of the things they do to show the average. You don't want to dumb the game down to like what they used to do with the orange puck, on the screen and things like that. You don't, in my opinion, you don't want to do that thing. So I think they're doing great jobs with whether it's ESPN or TSN, Sportsnet, any of the different NESN, any of the different broadcast companies around the world. I think the different teams have their great broadcast crews and they do the best they can. I think when you have certain, like I'm watching the games now, I think Florida, I called Florida in 7. Florida might win in 4. They're playing great. Paul Maurice is one of my favorite coaches. I'm really happy for him. But as far as an audience goes outside of being at the games, I don't think the NHL was too thrilled with Edmonton and Florida being in the Stanley Cup final. That is not the most attractive Stanley Cup final. No,
but I agree. Wouldn't it be good for the NHL though, for the Canadian teams, and what? And maybe you can talk about a little bit why you think that is. They haven't won a Stanley Cup in 30 plus years, which is shocking every time I think about that stat. What's happening, and wouldn't it be good for hockey if somebody actually won?
Well, the one thing that people don't understand, and it was 1993 when the Montreal Canadiens won. Patrick Waugh played amazing, 10 overtime wins. There's 7 Canadian teams. People keep saying, why can't Canada win? Why can't? There's 32 teams in the league. There's 7 Canadian teams. Before the season starts, their backs are up against the wall.
Yeah.
You got 7 in 32. That the odds are not great. The fact that the Oilers made it this far, that right away when you started, there's 3 or 4 Canadian teams that have no chance to win it. I live in Toronto. I'm not a Toronto fan. I'm a Chicago Blackhawk fan. When I was 6 in 1966, I met Bobby Hall. He shook my hand and became a Blackhawk fan. I don't think the Leafs are going to win in the next 20 years, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong because I got a lot of friends who love the Leafs. But so there's teams right away, Ottawa, teams like that just can't seem to get it right immediately. And if you fall behind in this league, by the time Christmas comes, you're in trouble. I think the Oilers have a real good team. I just think they're outmatched from top to bottom in the against the Florida Panthers. Other than McDavid and Draisaitl, who are 2 phenomenal players, I just think the Florida Panthers are on a roll from top to bottom. Maurice has them. They've learned so much from losing last year in the Stanley Cup final that I can't, especially now that they're up 3-0, I can't see them losing. I hope Edmonton wins a game so they don't get swept.
Yeah, it's interesting that you grew up a Blackhawks fan. I was a Ranger fan always, but Bobby Hull was my favorite player. I love Bobby Hull when I was a kid. You talked about Toronto, though. that's a talented team that just can't win in the playoffs. What's the problem there? Year after year after year, they just can't get out of the first round. What do you think is the problem there?
They're not built for the playoffs. They're built for the regular season where guys can go and just put points up and put numbers up and look great and, get the bonuses. The playoffs are a different animal. The playoffs are when you crunch. The playoffs are when the Chicago Blackhawks won in their first cup in 2010 from 1961 when they won the cup. That was a long, long time. Why did they win in 2010? Was it Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, and Duncan Keith? Yeah, they were amazing, but it was Boland, and it was the Buckland. It was those guys. It was Versteeg. It was the lunch, Brent Sopel. It was those guys that would put their face in front of a puck that will win a Stanley Cup. Why is Florida up? Barkov's playing great, yes, and their stars are. But it's their third line. It's the guys that can do anything. And Bobrovsky's playing great. Crawford played great with the Hawks. It's those type of situations. The Leafs have not had a goalie like that in years. And Wall played good. He got hurt. Samsonov, he's not the goalie. He's going to take you to the promised land.
Is there a team, as obviously you're still following the sport fairly closely at that level?
Yep.
Is there a team out there that you're shocked has not really kind of done better and gotten over? You mentioned Toronto's not built for the playoffs, but is there somebody you think is, but is still not gotten over the hump?
Well, I'm, and you might take this because you're from New York, but
that's okay. That's fine.
I honestly thought the Rangers could do it all this year. They had talent, they had the toughness, they had the talent, they had an incredible goalie in Shesterkin. I don't know whether it's ever going to work for them. They had everything you could imagine that you would need as a team, and they still didn't get to where they should be. They should be at least in the final. The team I love that you should really watch over the next couple of years is the Buffalo Sabres.
That's funny. Dave Guyette here is, I believe he's a Sabre fan. He's a Bills fan. Brings that up.
I love the Buffalo. I think they've got a lot of great things. They had a stretch last year of about 3 weeks that was dreadful. And if they didn't have that dreadful 3 weeks, they would have made the playoffs. And a team like that could have been a sleeper team. A team like the St. Louis Blues did when they won the Cup. A team like the LA Kings did when they won the Cup, where just sort of squeaked through the regular season, but made it into the playoffs and made it in hot. And the Sabres were getting hot before the season ran out on them.
I got to ask you too. You mentioned at the top of our interview that you were a bigger baseball fan than you were a hockey fan as a kid. Is that still true today? I mean, the game, and I'm still a big baseball fan, but the game has changed so much. Some days it's hard, even as a Yankee fan. By the way, I try not to take offense to the fact that you left Munson out of that conversation about catchers, but we'll let that pass.
No, hey, listen, if you would have given me time, I would have mentioned 10 more names, and he was incredible. I actually loved him.
Yeah.
When he died, that was terrible in the plane crash.
It's still a day that I hate to relive. It's funny, I don't know when you don't know somebody, right? But it still affects your life the way that did me and millions of other people my age and well, not my age. It's just
I hate to tell you, but I hated the Yankees. I still do. I'm a Red Sox fan from the time I was a kid. Like I said, the Jays didn't have a team, and I did love the Expos, but the Red Sox were my team. I had a chance in 1975. We went to Florida on a trip, and my brother and I drove from where we were to Winter Haven to watch the Red Sox training camp, and it was right after they lost to the Big Red Machine when Carlton Fisk did the home run, and Dwight Evans and Jimmy Rice and Carlton Fisk and Bill Lee and Louis Tiant. I could go on and on and on and on. And I was very fortunate that you remember Bernie Carbo?
Yeah, very well. Yes, so very well.
Bernie Carbo hit that massive home run, and the guys were walking out, and I had a glove that was an autographed. Oh my God, I can't remember who was autographed by. It wasn't the autograph, but it was from Rawlings, and it was that stamped autograph edition. And Carbo comes out, and I'm a 15-year-old big mouth punk, and Carbo comes out and he says, "Hey, what are you doing with that glove?" He thought it was was a pitcher. Mike Torres.
Mike Torres he pitched later. He didn't pitch on that 75 team. He pitched in 78.
I can't remember who it was, but it was that autograph. And was Darrell Evans on that team? Not Dwight Evans, but
no, Darrell never played with the Red Sox.
Can't remember who it was. But anyways, it was somebody, and he thought I stole the glove. And I got into a little interaction with and the security had to come. And my brother's 4 years older than me, but much smaller and would never start trouble like I would start. And security came. And do you remember George Scott, the first baseman, George C. Scott?
Absolutely.
So George Scott comes in, and now it's Bernie Carbo, George Scott, myself, a security guard, and my glove. God, I wish I could remember who autographed that glove. And anyways, they realized that it wasn't stolen because the guy who was his glove was in the clubhouse in Winter Haven. And so what do? Because of that, Carlton Fisk comes out, he takes my glove, and he gets the entire team to autograph the glove.
Oh, wow.
Freddie Lynn, this was a team, baby. This was a Rick Brosa. They had a team, boy. The Rooster, they were solid. The sad part about that was my son, who was never much of an athlete, great dancer, professional dancer. When he was 13 years old, he saw the glove, didn't realize what it was, and took it out. And,
oh no!
Yeah, I had the Spaceman's. Everybody was on there.
It's like that scene from what's that famous movie? My mind goes crazy these days. The one where the kids playing baseball.
Sandlot.
Sandlot.
Yeah,
it's like they took the guy's ball signed by Babe Ruth and they played.
Yeah. That's what my son had no clue what that glove meant to me. But hey, listen, what can you do? You live and you learn.
Oh, that's amazing, Paul. This has been a great hour. What would you like to leave? I know you do a lot of motivational speaking. We talked about the concussion, the literacy thing. Anything else that you want to leave our listeners with? Things that a message you want to deliver? And please read the book, guys, because you'll get into a lot more detail than we did today.
Yeah. So the book, Never Give Up. It's a very honest, open book to my hockey career, but more to my struggles, to my demons, to my addiction and mental health. And I really want people to understand. I want them to realize that there's nothing wrong with being sick. There's nothing wrong. It's okay to not be okay. People have said that now for a while. A lot of athletes are coming out now, and for people to ask for help. I would never have got through the struggles and the trials and tribulations of my life if I didn't ask for and get the help and listen to the people. Everybody's got trauma in their life. Everybody goes to listen. It's 2024. Even people that think they're doing good have some type of issues in their life. It's easy to just block them out. I'd say the number one thing to do is not to isolate. Do not isolate. Get help. Ask for help. And enjoy. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Listen, I've climbed this mountain we call life a million times. I've been at the top. I've been at the bottom. The view at the top's way better. It's never too late. I'm 64 years old. I'm doing great now. I love my life, and I get a chance to be around these incredible athletes that love this game of ice hockey and enjoy my life. And yeah, there's bad days, and yeah, I still have demons, but I know how to deal with them now.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and being willing to tell that story in an honest, open way, which, again, we've had a lot of guys. Randy Lurch was my guest last week, and you may remember his name from the 70s.
Yep,
he was
absolutely.
a hot prospect, and he admits that he kind of threw things away, but there's a story to tell from all of you guys and your struggles, and other people can learn from them. I'm so happy there's people like you that want to do that. And I would have let you go on that point, but Chris has always got that one question about, it's midnight. What's the food scene like in Australia, and what are you up to for recreation in Melbourne?
The food scene is great, Chris. Chris is actually, I talked about Kerry. We have a show called the Gooch and Rosie Show, our podcast, and Chris is he frequents with some incredible questions. Yeah, the food scene is great. We got a great place across the street from us called Urban Alley that has some incredible food. Thursday is $25 steak night. It's a wicked deal. So there is some great things. We're 15 minutes away from Rod Laver Stadium, which is where
Cool.
the Australian Open tennis is. I'm a huge tennis guy. There's a million things to do in Melbourne. It's if you get a chance, I don't work for the Australian Tourist Association, but if you do get a chance to come down to Australia, Melbourne and Sydney are two you have to see. There's incredible places all over Australia, but Sydney, the Opera House, Melbourne, it's just beautiful. And if you come down to Melbourne in the next 2 months, and you come to the O'Brien Ice House, come and ask for Kerry Goulet, the Gooch, or Paul Rosen Rosie, and come watch the Melbourne Ice get back on track.
Well, if you're there when I finally get there, because my wife has it on our bucket list, Australia, we'll certainly look you up for sure. And I do appreciate that. And Chris has been great. Chris is we call him our Toronto correspondent now. And Chris he's been following us for months now, but he's really been an integral part of commenting on the show, helping me get a couple of guests like yourself. And I do appreciate him a lot.
I'm on because of Chris. He set this up.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your time here. I try to have a nice conversation and keep it real. So, nice.
I loved it. It's after midnight here. I loved it. I'm going to have something to eat and get to sleep because we play the Sydney Ice Dogs tomorrow, and we got to get back on track.
Well, let me say goodbye, and then I'll say goodbye to you guys. Thanks for tuning in today with my guest, Paul Rosen. Please pick up the book as we talked about. I'll be posting links to it on my personal page and the TGI Sports Talk page. We'll have Jim Sundberg next Friday morning, as I mentioned, and join us Sunday for the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, where it's your show. And you guys have been just wearing me out on Sundays, but I love it. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend, guys.